Hey everyone, this is Kevin with Divinely Designed, and I'm going to be doing a short video on using Soap Calc to create a shaving soap. So, a couple people have asked me on my YouTube site, and I was reading through Facebook the other day, and somebody asked this question as well about how to use Soap Calc when creating a shaving soap. Because when you use a shave or when you create a shaving soap, you're usually using some combination of both sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. So I'll be walking through that today. Now, what this video is not the ultimate formula for the shaving soap, right? You will create that recipe, what you think the most fantastic ingredients are for your shaving soap, and in what proportions you use them. I'm not telling you what the most fantastic recipe for a shaving soap is. I have a recipe in here for demonstration purposes of using Soap Calc. Okay, so let's get started. When you go to Soap Calc, it's pretty easy to walk you through. You can see there are numbers here, and we'll walk through each of those steps. On number 1, it will default to sodium hydroxide, and that's what you're going to leave it as right now. We're going to come back and we'll be using the potassium hydroxide one in a second, but for right now, you just leave it selected like it is. On number 2, I selected the ounces. You can do this in however you want to create your recipe, but let's say I want to make a 3-pound recipe, so I'm going to select 48 ounces of oils as my goal. The water under number 3, it will default to water as a percent of oils of 38, and you can leave it just like this. If you soap with a particular lye concentration, you could certainly select that radio button and then just type in whatever lye concentration you typically use. For 4, you're going to select your superfat. It will default to 5, which is where I'm leaving it. And you can also choose your fragrance amount. It defaults to 0.5. I believe I changed mine to 0.8. For number 5, you don't need to do anything here. You can just leave that alone. Number 6 is where you're going to enter your formula, or your butters and your oils. So here you can see I have a formula. And I'm using a percentage formula. You could also type in the specific number of ounces if you wanted to, but for this demonstration video, I'm using just my recipe in terms of a percentage. So my percentages need to total up to 100 to have a complete recipe. So I have 50% beef tallow, 20% stearic acid, 10% castor oil, 10% kokum butter, 10% mango butter. And once I have my whole recipe entered, then I can come down to number 7 here and click on the Calculate Recipe button. Once I've done that, you'll notice the button right below it becomes active, or you can click on it, and go ahead and click on that. It will open up in a new screen or a new tab in your browser the recipe that you've created. So here's all of my oils and everything, and it will list it out in pounds and ounces and grams. And above that is the water and lye. So you can see we need 517 grams of water and 180 grams of lye, in this case our sodium hydroxide. So remember these numbers for now. In fact, if you're doing this and using Soap Calc, you would write these numbers down so that you can remember them, because we're going to go back and calculate the potassium part right now. So, going back to Soap Calc, I'm going to leave everything I've done exactly the same, except I'm going to come up here and choose potassium hydroxide. I'm going to then hit that Calculate Recipe button again, and then click on the View or Print Recipe button. Now you can see my lye is my potassium hydroxide, and now it calls for 252.9, or I'd round that up to 253 grams of potassium hydroxide. Now look that our grams of water are still the same, 517. So that's the amount of water you're going to use for this recipe, is 517 grams of water. But let's look at the amounts of the different types of lye that we're going to use. Okay, now we have to do a little bit of math. Whoops. pull this up so you can see. Okay, so remember when we calculated for the sodium hydroxide, it called for 180 grams. And when we calculated for the potassium, it called for 253 grams. Now, in both of those formulas, we were using 100% of each of those. But what we want is a combination of sodium and potassium hydroxide. Now, here on the bottom, I've broken them out. Now, I'm going to use a ratio of 40% sodium hydroxide to 60% potassium hydroxide. Now, this ratio here is also something you need to figure out or you need to determine. Depending on your formula, this ratio may vary for you. Depending on what you think the most perfect shaving soap is, this ratio may vary for you. But I'm using, for this demonstration purposes, 40% sodium hydroxide and 60% potassium hydroxide. You will change this to whatever you want it to be. 80-20, 70-30, 65-35. Whatever you think the perfect ratio is, that's what you'd want to use. So, for my 40% sodium hydroxide, I'm going to take the total amount of 180 and multiply it by 0.4 to give me 72 grams. And the 60% potassium, I'm going to take the 253 and multiply it by 0.6 to get 151.8, or I'd round that up to 152 grams. So remember, our water amount was 517 grams of water. We'd still use that, to which I would add 72 grams of sodium hydroxide and 152 grams of potassium hydroxide. And that's what I would add to my oils and butters to make the shaving soap. Now remember that these percentages over here must total 100%. So no matter what the ratio is, 80-20, 60-40, 70-30, you must total to 100% to make sure that your recipe is accurate. Okay, that's really it. There is another calculator out there, and I will put links down below, both to Soap Calc and this other lye calculator, which is called the Summer Bee lye calculator. Summer Bee actually allows you to choose the ratio of sodium and potassium, but I'm not real familiar with that one. I just don't have a comfort level of using it. Not that it's hard or anything, but I'm just much more familiar with Soap Calc, and I find this way very easy for me to understand. You can put in that whole recipe, run it for sodium, write your values down, and then just go back and click that potassium button and you get your other amounts. A little bit of math, and then you're all done. So that's it. Comments, questions, leave them below. I'll certainly try to answer any questions you guys have. If you like this video, click that thumbs up button, and if you're new to my channel, click on that subscription button. And check back here for more bath, beauty, and soap related videos here at Divinely Design. Thanks very much for watching.